Hi folks, Roage here in the woodshop. This one's called Game On, and if you've been watching the news, the game is on. If you're watching this, you're probably not out there looting right now. So enjoy the show. There'll be more of this, and it'll get really exciting from here on out. So I just wanted to, touch base with you and give you a little idea, a little hint as to what might be happening here as we go forward, because I'm sure you're looking at the news and seeing people just out of their minds. But this is the zombie apocalypse, which apparently is code for looters and those people not watching the video right now. Be mindful that the Department of Homeland Security is practicing right now, and I'm sure that they'll be well equipped to handle all of the zombies out there that have just taken leave of their senses. I want to talk about a little nuance, and before I do that, I want to go into and make sure that we're all on the same perceptual model. Now, one guy's perceptual model is just like another guy's perceptual model because, quite frankly, the universe is subjective. There are some people that think, hey, wow, there's hard things out there in the universe, and I have no control or no effect over that. And there's other people that think that they have complete control and that the universe is a simulation. And it's all subjective. So it just for the most part, the lesson that you need to go through, and whatever model works for you. But for me to continue, you need to know how I'm operating, so it makes a little bit more sense to you what I some of the other this being a foundation, you'll see that there are other things that I'll put on top of this foundation. But I mean, anybody is free. I'm not trying to. I certainly wouldn't want to push my model on anybody else, as long as they don't try to push their model on me. And of course, that's what's happening to us. So. I just want to get it squared away so that we understand one another, such that people don't place themselves in an uncomfortable situation unnecessarily, because you trying to apply your model to me, of course, won't work for you, and it'll cause you some discomfort. So first, let's go into the model. Now, the model has some basic fundamentals like the on symbol and ego and self, and that I go into great depth on in other videos. So you're free to actually peruse those and get up to speed on that. Again, this model that I'm going to show you is a result of me, just being here in the universe, in this thing we call reality, just breaking stuff and, injuring people and just, making a mess of everything, just so I could test to see how, things actually worked here, with regard to boundaries and stuff like that. So, primarily, the first element is the on symbol. That is on. And we're primarily one being. In a simulation. It's a simulated universe. It doesn't have any real things in it. It's a projection. And how this works is each of us has sort of a tunnel back to on. And then if you see the little on symbol, those are actually the same. And how that actually looks really is this way, so it's actually connected. Now, we're all one being with the illusion that we're many. Okay, so each of us, occupies our own little space, our own little universe in this multiverse. And it's not really volume, it's not really space, but it's just a mental construct. So each of us has a tunnel back to the singular being that's on. So that I just showed you is, that's how it actually works. So the two major components to our experience is self and ego. Now, self is I'm representing as this blue sphere in the center. Of course, self is controlled by on, as is the red part, which is ego. Now, ego is that which lies outside of us, and self is that which lies inside of us. And self, because it's closer to on, this is where our intuition comes from. Ego on the outside is like thought or even feelings. It's what we think. It's ideas. Okay? Ego translates to the left brain, and self translates to the right brain. And you can see these depicted here in this picture right here. Ego itself is the outward projection. That is the universe. And for each of us, we have our own individual universe. And I'll go into how that relates to others, and there are other universes. But everything that we see comes out from the singular point, and we look out, and we're basically portals. Now, each time On decides to create a new facet of consciousness, I'm going to represent that as an eye, an eyeball, and that's going to represent all of our senses. Okay, and that's what we generally call eye. Okay, but depending on where you're at, that eye may have a different meaning. Now, how we come into the world, and I'm going to. Right now, you can see the eye; it's really close to on. And that's the way we come into the world. We're in the womb. It's very soft. It's very sheltered. It's very peaceful, and we're gradually eased into this reality. And when we first start out, it's almost all self, and that's that blue area. So we are almost entirely inside. Real close to on, and very intuitive, and we have no aspect of ego. Now, we do sense things outside of us, but we don't make the distinction of that being outside, because of course at that point we don't have eyes, and we have ears, but we don't have a great idea of outside of us. So when we're born, that's when we start getting introduced to the outside of us, and that's when if you see that our consciousness then starts taking its first steps into consciousness, or into ego. And when we're born, our self and ego is balanced. Because we haven't really filled up any experiences. I mean, we do have a womb experience, but most of us don't retain much of that. There are people that say that they can remember, but I can't. So, but this is my model, so I don't remember what it was like to be inside the womb. So, and I'm not saying that those people are wrong. It's just not been my experience. So, we're very balanced. When we're born, and I indicate that by being half in, half out. Now we have an awareness of things on the outside, and when we're small, one of the first things that we see is something sort of like this. We see our hands and our feet and our nose, and then we start seeing this other stuff outside of us. Again, we're very balanced, but we're starting to see and experience things outside, see and hear, and starting to detect separate objects. For instance, our mother would appear outside of us. Now, she has her own universe out here, and and this is a representation of people being at a distance, so far away that they can't see one another because both have their own individual universe and they have their own individual experience, and there's no consistency between either of them. And it's sort of like being in separate rooms or separate egg cartons. So, as time goes on, then this is a representation of two people who are actually closer. We can actually touch the two self spheres can actually touch, but that's generally how we see things. Everything our bodies are basically stuff that is outside. Our brains are things that are outside. The outside of our body, our skin, we see as just a covering, and then we see objects outside. And in this, the two universes, two respective universes touches, so we can have a shared experience, and we can see the same, what we think is the same thing or object, from different perspectives. And there are always going to be different perspectives because we can't generally see out of somebody else's eyes, which is an interesting aspect of what a camera can do, because then two people can see from a singular point of reference. However, so far those experiences are not necessarily as real as our living experience in reality. So in this way, countless universes can be created. Excuse me. Can be created, and you just add more selves and egos, and let's just say these two bodies get together. Hey, wow! Then they can open up and create a new living, aware man or little baby, and the process starts as all over again. Now that autonomy between the two universes sort of breaks down to a certain extent when there's more than one person in close proximity to one another. But understand this: it is all a projection. It's just a show, and whether we can both grasp the same object at the same time, that doesn't actually go to demonstrate that the objects are actually there, and not more than just a perceptual or a thought construct. Okay, so it's illusory. It also affords you an amount of protection. However, when you go through life, there are certain experiences that you came here to experience, and things that you came here to learn. So, going back to an individual's universe, as we're young children, we start moving away from self, and for probably the last 26,000 years, we've been wholly engaged in primarily an ego experience, and we've been moving farther and farther away from self into ego. And now most people exist almost entirely in ego. Now, you don't become completely disconnected. You always have some contact to self, but it becomes very tenuous, almost indetectable. You can't even tell it's there. Ego has so dominated our experience that for the most part, unless you have a special experience, you have no contact with self, and that's where a lot of people are at right now. I mean, most people are existing in a completely left brain experience. Now, some people actually are closer in, and some people are farther out. There's no wrong or right. Each one of us came here for a specific experience, and here lately, it has served our purpose to be more ego-based. The I on the right is deeper into ego, and in extreme cases, it's people who are very egotistical and very narcissistic, whereas people on the represented here on the left, they're closer into the self. They're more intuitive. They have a better sense of purpose, a better a more robust idea of reason, and less haphazardness in their experience. Whereas the ego-based experience is primarily where one loses most of their sense of purpose and exists in a world of luck, chance, accident, chaos, and they become disconnected from self. So those are primarily the ranges that we fall into. Now, if you're somebody like me, I had an experience that actually changed me. And I represent it like this image here, where you see that the observer is actually encountering self, the on. Okay, and it becomes a real meaningful experience. Some people actually have experiences, similarly to an out of a near-death experience. That is one of those things. But generally, what happens here, and the reasons these things come about, is generally ego eventually burns itself out, or gets itself into such a predicament that. And there's so much suffering, and people hit that bottom that ego can't resolve it. So what happens is we don't have any other choice but to go through a period of deep introspection, and we have this cathartic transformation that basically puts us, in touch with ourselves. And this is synonymous to what we call finding oneself. And this is where you're at. Now, this is no place to exist. This is no way to exist for an extended period of time, because technically, a complete separation from ego, nothing would happen in our experience. I mean, ego is where we experience the outer. So, if we want to sit there and clam up and have, no kind of meaningful contact with anything outside of us, that's not a healthy existence, as nothing really, we're safe, but we're not learning, and we're not growing. So once you have that experience, then what happens is you get to a point where it's in balance. And the nice part about that is you will bounce between, you'll bounce, around that line. So you're half in, half out. So, I split the difference there. So it's not to say that you won't have periods of, extreme ego or extreme self. It is that it becomes rebalanced. So you start, you are actually moved back into the center. And you have a good mixture between experience and purpose and meaning, and you become very well grounded, very well balanced. That's not to say there aren't things that are startling or fearful or cause suffering in your experience, but because you have access to the purpose and meaning behind your experience, those things fit in. They're less of a puzzle, and they fit into more of a script. And this is the difference between like free will, or the appearance of free will, and other models like fate. Fate doesn't really offer you very much. Free will doesn't offer you very much protection. However, the other model is the destiny model, meaning that, hey, there is a purpose and a meaning for our experience and the things that happen to us. So this is the perceptual model that I'm operating on. I've got my own particular universe. There are people that I encounter. I don't look at them as separate from me. I look at them as me. If they're in my particular bubble, we have a shared experience. The odd thing about being inside my bubble is the balanced nature of my experience demands that certain things occur, for a reason. However, that, things start making sense when you're around me. However, when you leave my bubble, things stop making sense, and you go back to your own universe and your own definition. So that's what I'm operating on. So when we go to the next stage of the video, the game on part, then I'll explain to you, what's happening in reality, at least for me, and what I'm seeing, and maybe you'll be able to find some commonality there, to where we can, approach what we see happening right now in the world with a little bit more comfort. All right. So, probably after the last geographical pole shift, we probably rendered, for the most part, in a pretty simple state. I think we lost most of the technology, and we were back to simple society, simple tools, and we had to relearn everything, because it didn't take very many generations before we forgot how to make iron or steel, and casts, and pottery and all of that stuff. It goes pretty quick. So at one point, I'm sure the population of the Earth went down considerably, and found ourselves out there just fending for ourselves, living off the land, and integrating pretty well holistically with the environment. Of course, there were natural threats, and we as time went on, we became more and more skilled at actually managing those threats, and finding more food. We became more skilled hunters and gatherers, and eventually we started hanging out together. And when we hung out, we started sharing the work, and life got a little bit easier. Well, after a while, we pretty much were looking for something else, because we're probably getting a little bored with being happy and stuff. So we decided to hey, maybe we'll just play some games. And we decided, well, hey, let's play a game called Civilization. And it's sort of like Monopoly, right? You all the everybody playing the game, everybody knows the rules. Everybody has access to the box top, so they can read what the rules are. And a few people would get together and say, hey, we're going to play this Civilization game. And there's always people there that said, yeah, you know what, your game's not for me. I'm going to go someplace else, either start my own game, or just not play games at all, and just stick to the hunting and gathering thing, and just being okay. And it was okay back then, because there was plenty of space, and we didn't have to get we didn't have to get involved in the Civilization game if we didn't have to. And of course, everybody playing their particular game always seems to think that their game is the best one, and because they're playing it, then everybody should be playing their game. So and this is a very egocentric way of looking at stuff. And then of course it inevitably led to one game intruding on another game, and the players of one game like kicking the crap out of the players of the other game, and then eventually what happens is everybody starts playing one game, and as that game gets stronger and stronger, it moves out and starts changing all of the other games around them. And around Rome was actually one of the primary civilizations that were unifying the game, and that ushered in a lot of expansion, and it started ushering in an increase in the rules. However, they were still fairly simple, and they might have still fit on the box top. When you look at all the rules, and for the most part, there were the rules were pretty well known. However, what started happening is there were different rules for different players, and the game started getting pretty complicated. The Civilization game did. So, all of a sudden, people started, you know, growing in number, and there were fewer and fewer major games being played, and there's considerable conflict. It's like each king had their own game, and their game was the only game in town. And then, of course, the church came in and said, no, we'll be the referee here. So you and your game, you don't get to be that special player, and they started managing the game very specifically. Not only that, but then there were these people that were managing the resources of the game, so that making sure that everybody had their fair share, which meant that they got most of it, and everybody else just had what was left. So once again, we get the situation where things started getting a little crowded in Europe, and everybody's basically playing different games. So we decided, well, we'll just separate these out as different cultures, but primarily they were playing the same kind of civilization game. All right, so then there's a few people in Europe. They discovered the New World. There are people in Europe says, you know what, I don't want to play this game anymore. I'm going to go to the colonies and to the New World, and we're going to play our own game over here. So they did. They left, and there were still open spaces, and they could go out and play their own game. However, there were already folks here, and they were playing their own game. And they had their own culture set up, and there it wasn't without conflict. Okay, I mean, that's part of the fun aspect of playing the civilization game, is bumping up against another civilization, and having a war or a fight. But I mean, it wasn't so drastic that whole games were exterminated. But that was the situation. However, the people who were here playing their game, they had a different idea of what the whole civilization game was all about. And all of a sudden, here come these newcomers that were playing, all kinds of different games, and they weren't quite the same. So, of course, the people in Europe, they decided that their game was the correct game, and the game that the people that were here originally, nah, we're not going to let you play that game. So they pushed him off, and he says, well, we'll just make some places where you can play your game. And they gave him probably the worst places to live, so they can play their game. If they don't want to play our game, then we'll just put them in these reservation things, and they can play their game, whatever, and then we'll just we'll encircle them, and we'll starve them out, and make sure that they'll eventually come around to play our game. And that's, for the most part, that's what happened. That culture was largely absorbed here, and that was true for most of the countries here in the New World. So, time goes on, more people. Wow. Soon, we're running out of space. We can't go and play our own game of Monopoly or Civilization. It's all this. There's no room to get away from all of the people playing that one particular game. And so, some compromises were set up. They said, okay, well, hey, on your own property, you can do your own thing. You can do your own game, for the most part. But, if you're going to come off your property, then we're all going to play this game. We're going to all play the, general game. And even then, it was like couple of pieces of paper with the rules and stuff. And then, of course, if you were in a particular community, there were other rules, and there weren't a whole lot of them. And most folks already knew, what was reasonable and what was permissible within the game, not to mess with anybody else. And for the most part, it was okay. However, population increased some more. So last century, it gets down to the point where, hey, we're inside of our little compartmentalized houses, and, what we say, it said in there goes, and it was basically a family unit. And, of course, the space that we had to play our own individual games the way we wanted to was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. it's now to the point where not only don't you have any space to play the game, that you're not allowed to even play by your own rules anymore. And not only that, but if you are trying to play by your own rules and do your own game, then the game on the outside starts looking in. So that protection of privacy was kind of important to people who wanted to play their own independent games. However, we don't have that anymore. Everybody is supposed to be playing that one game, and it's worldwide now. And not only that, but the worst part of it is you can't just look at the box top and see what the rules are. Okay, now the rule, there's so many rules now that you have no idea what they are. Not only that, but you've got rules in different places, and they don't agree. And you're left with just walking around until somebody says, "Hey, you're not supposed to be doing that," and then of course they put you in jail. And there's no way for you to actually know that you shouldn't have been doing that in the first place, because it would take more than a lifetime to actually read all of the game box tops now with all of the rules. In fact, those guys that actually make the rules now, they don't even read the rules anymore. They just make those rules, and everybody is supposed to do it. Like, for instance, if it's Tuesday and you're left-handed, you shouldn't be walking or skateboarding right here in this place. However, other days, and if you're right-handed, it's okay for you to do that. And the rules now have become so convoluted that you have no capacity to actually play the game without breaking them. And there's the problem. In fact, we've been playing this game so long that we don't even know what the rules are. In fact, we don't even know what the purpose of our existence is anymore. We think it's just kill or be killed, or collect all the stuff and let everybody else go hungry. And we think that's the objective of the game. But that ain't the objective of the game. No. So we're getting to a point now where, we're very young when we're introduced to the game. But it's just a game, right? Just about the time we, create an identity for ourselves and realize that there's a difference between, I and the mother, I, then that's when we're already introduced to it. And who introduces it to us? Oh, the people we trust the most, our parents, who of course trusted their parents, who trusted their parents, and they trusted their parents. Of course, they're all playing this weird game. Now this game has become pretty twisted. I don't know if you've paid attention. I guess it's okay just to kill people anytime the rules say that. Just get rid of them. Take their stuff. Take everything they have. Leave them totally destitute. Don't allow them to speak. Just run them off the land and leave them with nothing, so that they're left begging. And of course, there's nobody actually contribute anything. So they just starve to death. And that's the game. And we're playing this game. And I don't know about you, but it just may be my opinion, but I don't think the whole civilization game is fun anymore. And I don't even think it's in our own interest to continue playing it. I can look around now, and I can look at some of the problems that the game creates on its own, that are totally unmanaged, unhandled, and in fact, we're dealing with these fictional entities now, these corporation things. And they're not even real. There's all these people that think they belong to this fictional entity and are working towards a common goal, and quite frankly, the common goal apparently is to destroy the people that work for the corporation itself. It's an odd notion, but that's what I see happening. And in fact, some of the things where they talk about protecting people. That's a funny notion for me. Apparently, protecting people is to starve them to death or to kill them, because that's what I see going on. Yeah, and we see it all the time, and and I'm not trying to make a joke here. It's just pretty damn absurd that people who need food are just pretty much denied food and killed. They're starved out of resources. They don't have any opportunity because their nutrition is so bad that it affects their IQs to the point where it's hard for them to actually exist. Um, but that's the reason why we have to get rid of them, because they're not smart enough to actually fend for themselves. Well, they're not smart enough to fend for themselves largely because they're being starved to death, and not only that, but the normal response to being starved is to have more kids, so maybe some of them survive. So we have this population explosion of people who are malnourished all over the world, and seems to me that it's not going to get any better, and it seems to me that we've had plenty of time to actually fix it. So I don't think it's necessarily a matter of us wanting to fix it. I just think it's a matter of us employing the game and expecting the game to actually fix it, when it's really the nature of the game itself isn't even in our best interest. So a few years back, I decided, and I recognized that the game was actually very dangerous, and it wasn't something that I wanted to get into. So I decided that, I'm going to stop playing this game. Now, if you think about playing a game of Monopoly, okay, only the people who want to play Monopoly, if you're with some friends, are actually playing it. There's a lot of people that are just sitting out and they're doing other things. Maybe they're in the backyards, talking with somebody else. If you've got a party of people, and some of them might want to play Monopoly, and they do. But only people that are sitting at the table playing Monopoly are the ones that actually want to play Monopoly. The people that play Monopoly, they're not going out on the patio saying, hey guys, get in here, we're playing Monopoly. Oh, the other people say, no, I don't want to play Monopoly. You just go ahead. But what we got here in society is we got the people playing Monopoly games saying, no, 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 you get in here and you play Monopoly. Wow. And now we're at a point where we can't even leave the party. We're stuck. We have to play this game, right? And there's always this one guy, the banker, right? He controls all the money. And unfortunately for our Monopoly game, we don't know what the rules are, right? So the banker is making the rules, or the government, right? The instructions on the box are changing so fast that, I mean, the Monopoly game gets boring. It makes people mad. They start fighting. Not only that, but the banker is taking all the money. It's not giving any money out to anybody else. So people are rolling the dice, and eventually everybody just doesn't pass go, and they go directly to jail, and they don't collect their $200. And this is what I see happening. People are punished because they're stupid, and they're stupid because they're punished. They're punished with scarcity and deprivation. Okay, and they're stupid because they're made that way. They're not educated properly. They have no clue to sustain themselves. They become wholly dependent on a infrastructure that could collapse at any minute. All of a sudden just burps and the whole entire electrical grid is down. If you don't have electricity, you're not pumping water. It's hard to put out fires when you have no water. And not only that, but when it's dark and people are hungry, they tend to start fires everywhere. Okay, that's just what they do. I mean, so it wouldn't take very much to put our infrastructure down, and it wouldn't take very long before we turn into total barbarians. I mean, completely. We don't have a capacity for existence outside of the delicate infrastructure that we've become wholly dependent on. That's not a good thing. So On actually recognizes that, that's not a sustainable way of existence. So let me show you that it's not a sustainable way of existence. So let me show you guys that actually think that you control things. Let me show you how little control you actually have. And this is what we're seeing right now. We're seeing widespread financial collapse brought about largely because we have a financial system that's specifically designed to collapse. And wow, we should be surprised that it's actually collapsing. When quite frankly, if you know how the paper fiat currency system works, and interest and compound interest, then it's not hard to see why the system that was created was going to come to an end, and come to an end in a real ugly way. And that's done because then what we have is a bunch of poor people, or people who think they're poor, walking off their property because some guy is waving a piece of paper saying, "Hey, I own this," when quite frankly everything's school property. So what I see happening right now is I see the game collapsing in on itself because it wasn't a very well thought out game in the first place. Unfortunately, there are too many people playing the game and too few people thinking about what the rules should be. Unfortunately, the people who are thinking about what the rules should be really don't care about the people who are playing the game. They only care about themselves, and so as a consequence, the rules are skewed such that they have every advantage, and most people playing the game does not. So it's not a surprise that we've got the problems that we have. What is a surprise is how much punishment we're prepared to take. And what I see going forward is we're going to start entering the punishment phase, right? The punishment rounds of the game. Because you can't do what it is that we're attempting to do for very long. The Earth is moving into, and the solar system is moving into a very interesting place in the galaxy, and it's going to have an effect, and that effect's going to be uncomfortable. The whole idea of a zombie apocalypse, I've gone into it in another video. That's happening right now, folks. I mean, you look around, you see people at every level just going nuts. I mean, they're out of their minds. I mean, and unfortunately, everybody's so involved in this game that they can't even see straight. Okay? You've got people who are well-meaning, well-intended, that are going to do nothing more than hurt people because they don't know any better. And they're actually thinking they're doing a good thing. Protecting the stockholders. They don't realize it's the stockholders that are sitting there on the street with a cardboard sign. And they're holding a worthless piece of paper that some portfolio manager is managing for them. And they don't have enough food to eat, but hey, they got a piece of paper that says they have stuff, when really they don't have anything. They don't have enough food to eat, and besides, even if you had something that would be considered valuable in the form of some sort of paper or bond, it's not a big deal. You just starve that man to death, and you can take it from him. How do you steal all the property out of a country? Well, that's real easy. You start feeding that country a bunch of worthless paper money, and you just hand it out like it's candy. Then, once everybody gets used to having free money very easily, right? Starting to do what people do, they start depending on it. Then you take it away. Then everybody can't make their house payment. Oh, we're going to foreclose on you. So then they get run off their property. You transfer all the jobs out of a particular area. Oh man, shoot, you could just take the houses. They're just all over the place. I mean, you look at places like Detroit or Flint, Michigan, or any place in the United States. There's places in California now. I mean, these are whole communities that went from boom to bust because somebody decided, hey, let's get all of that property. It's easy. They won't figure it out. We'll just flood all kinds of money, paper money in there. It doesn't have any value whatsoever. And once they get dependent on it, we'll take it away. Then we'll snap up the assets for nothing. Cash for keys. They give you $500. You give them the keys and leave all of your stuff. They take it to the landfill, fill the landfill up with all of your new TVs and all of the furniture and all of the baby toys and clothes. Yeah, they just take it to the landfill. No, they don't give it to the homeless. They throw it away. They throw it away. That's civilization, folks. That's civilization. Excuse me if I don't want to play that anymore. If you want to play it, that's fine. I got a different game I want to play. I'm going to call it Happiness. So, I'm tangled with the people that are running the game. Not a surprise. I stopped playing. That's what happens. And they're trying to force me back into the game. They're saying, well, if you play the game, then, if you do this, this, and this, then we have to put you in the cage. And I says, well, that's if I was playing the game. But since I'm not playing the game, then you don't put me in the cage. The question is when is everybody else going to stop playing the game? That's the question. So now we have 7 billion people playing a game that will eventually self-destruct. So On says, I wonder if it's salvageable. What happens when On says, well, I think that's enough. And I think that's what's happening right now, folks. I think we're in for some great adventures. Most of them will be fatal. It'll be interesting to watch, interesting to be experience. Oh, and I don't have any expectation that it ain't going to be any different for me. But for me, I'm hoping to go out to in the first round. I don't want to hang around for the really interesting stuff later. Shoot, I want to be first at my local FEMA camp. I mean, just re-educate me. Give me one of those formaldehyde trailers. Yeah. Inoculate me. Feed me that poison food. So I mean, why bother? Why bother? Right now, civilization, right? The game we're playing right now, is so dangerous that it almost is a foregone conclusion that the game itself will destroy itself. So I'm just kind of curious why everybody has really decided to continue playing it. So that's where we're at. So of course the Mayans, they seem to think something's going on, and some of the stuff that's coming out of NASA right now is just completely absurd. Like for instance, as we approach the plane of the galaxy, quantum physicists say that because the black hole in the center of the galaxy is spinning so fast that the gravitational field flattens out like a real thin disk. And every 26,000 years the Earth goes through it, and it has a very profound effect on the Earth. So one of the things that they were expecting to happen as we start getting closer to the galactic rift is that the pressure on the crust will cause heating, underwater heating, at the bottom of the ocean. And they're seeing that happen right now. The temperature at the bottom of the ocean is increasing significantly enough for everybody to notice. So NASA comes out with their explanation, and they said, well, Sun is heating up the plankton, and the plankton is falling down to the bottom of the ocean. And that's heating up the bottom of the ocean. And that works great. If you're an idiot, don't know any better, one of the basic premises, thermodynamically, is that heat rises. It doesn't fall. I don't care if it's attached to plankton. So the crust is heating up. Also, the earthquakes, I don't know if you've noticed, the severity and the number is at levels we've never seen. All of a sudden. Also, we've got quote-unquote climate change, and everything's supposed to be getting really hot. Of course, we've had record winters and snow in places that haven't had snow in hundreds of years. And in fact, the driest place in the world, hadn't had rain in 600 years or more, it snowed. But that's global warming. I'm not saying that climate change isn't occurring. Yes, but it ain't because people are driving automobiles. Some of the other interesting things that we've noticed is, suddenly Mercury has a magnetic field. It was like magic. It just showed up. Didn't have one before. What's happening there? Not only that, but Venus is glowing on the dark side. There's a high presence of oxygen. What's happening at the sun that's causing that? Higher energy, maybe? Mars has clouds. Never had clouds before. And its ice caps are melting. The plasma ring around Saturn is increasing. Don't know why. The storms are getting more frequent, more violent, more numerous, and there's some significant changes on both Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. In fact, Neptune was pretty much boring. Or Uranus was pretty much boring. Now there's bright, luminescent storms all over it, suddenly. And Pluto's atmosphere is becoming denser and denser. And that's normal for Pluto as it approaches the sun. More of its atmosphere, which is pretty much laying on the ground, ends up melting and evaporating and creates an atmosphere for it. And that's normal for Pluto to happen when Pluto is approaching the sun. However, Pluto's not approaching the sun. It's going away from the sun. So something's happening, folks. And the people, there are people that know what's happening. Okay? We're entering into a pretty, let's say, unstable environment. So, let's just say that we have a geographic pole shift and the crust of the Earth slips a few dozen degrees. Center of the Earth stops and the crust just keeps going. That's the day where everybody gets knocked down, right? And you have things like magnitude 12 earthquakes, that kind of stuff. 13s, volcanoes everywhere. Equator's now in a different place. Sunrise is in a different direction. Stuff like that. Forget the grids. We're talking whole areas of continents sinking under the water. Just like it did 26,000 years ago. Like clockwork. And it's coming up. So the Mayans said that Mayan predicted that we'd be, transiting at 11 a.m. December 21st of this year. So we'll see what happens. One of the things that is rather unsettling is if the crust stops and the water keeps going, you're going to have tsunamis that of the type that's been recorded all over the world. Cities are going to sink just like they've been discovered, on coastlines all over the world. Just whoops, there it goes, right down into the water. Sorry about your civilization there. Too bad about those nuclear power plants. That's gotta hurt. So, suddenly we have no electricity, and you know, people are freaking out. So, I'm thinking, well, if all of these uncomfortable things are happening right now, whether or not I'm playing the civilization game right now is not really a big deal. And I'm not saying that, because I'm not playing the civilization game that I'm somehow some sort of uncouth barbarian, violent or lawless. Quite the contrary. I want to do things that are actually in the best interest of the people around me, instead of just simply taking advantage of the people around me. So, let's just say that we're going to have, some sort of cataclysmic biblical events. Um, I don't know. It just seems to me that we should spend our time having barbecues instead of setting our cities on fire or looting or anything like that. Maybe we should just like get together and have quiet get together. Have a few beers here and there. Not so much that you get crazy, but hey, some wine. Some cheese. Pool our resources and just have a maybe a block party. The whole world. Just relax and say, okay, where do we want to go from here? We tried the whole scarcity model, and that didn't really work. And then, just sit around and, watch the fireworks that are coming and, just take it all in. Instead of, just going ape shit and, just freaking out, like apparently what's going on right now all over the world. And I don't expect it to get any better. Unfortunately. But, this may be one of the last few times that we have one of these little talks in the woodshed. So, whatever you guys want to do. But no more Monopoly game for me. No more Civilization game for me. And, I don't consent to what it is that you're doing. I just don't think it's a good idea. I think some of the behaviors of people that are playing the Civilization game right now are absolutely atrocious. Now, I'm not judging them. They're free to play any game that they want, as long as they don't try to make me play their game. Then we're going to be just fine. However, if you try to make me play that game, then I'll introduce you to a being that actually runs this whole simulation. That being's called On. And I just have to do this. This is Roage of On. Resistance is futile. You will service On. I just had to do that. So eventually On will get tired of what he sees, and he says, "Well, hey, let's clear the playing field and cut down the number of players, and let's start this over again." And I think that that's what we're about to experience. Unfortunately, it isn't going to go very well for most people. Most people are going to be terrified of what's going to occur, and a lot of people are going to lose their lives. It's okay, folks. I'm right there with you. If I'm first, hey, so be it. I'm not worried about dying. I know what On is. I know what this construct is. I know the virtual nature of the simulation here. I know what I am. I'm a being in eternity, and this suit's disposable. And we've been playing a pretty interesting game, and we've been plumbing the depth of human depravity. And it's been pretty remarkable how depraved we are, and how cruel we can be, and how heartless and all of those very interesting tendencies that make living so complicated. So that's where I'm at in all of this. There's a different way. There's a different game, and of course it comes through introspection. And a lot of you are going to be having transcendent experiences coming up. Quite frankly, because you're going to see stuff that's going to blow you away. You're going to see disasters And hey, you'll have one of these transcendent moments when you see the 300-foot wave coming right towards you. That's the times where you have those things. And for me, if it would have taken a 300-foot wave for me to actually do a little bit of introspection, then I would have considered that worth it. I mean, honestly. Um, sometimes your best work is done when you're terrified beyond your capacity to function. Because when you stop functioning, that's when you have those cathartic experiences, those transcendent experiences. And I think a lot of people are going to have those in the days to come here, as we move through, what's going on. Hey, they might just get around to kicking off World War II, or World War III, I should say. And there's going to be that whole zombie apocalypse thing, and of course, it may get so bad. It might just be a superstorm, or some sort of calamity that causes them to declare martial law, and then shoot, it'll be an open season on anybody running around looting. And how do you tell a looter from somebody who's cowering, trying to hide? Well, they won't care. If they see you and they have a gun, they have it in their mind that they're protecting you, they'll probably shoot you. So but that's the act of a civilized man, apparently. So the whole idea of civilization, that it's based on a contract. A contract has to be willing. That means, hey, if I don't want to play the Monopoly game, right? I don't care what the rules say on the box. Then I don't want to play. And you can't force me to play. Otherwise, it's not civil. It's not a civilization. Then what it is it's criminal. It's criminalization. So if you're forcing people to play your particular flavor of civilization, then it's no longer willing. So it's because civilization is based on contract, and you're forcing people to do it. That's not civil. That's criminal. And there are consequences for criminality. And we're about to see what those are. And we're probably not going to like it. Just me. There's going to be some waking up, though. There's some revealing going to happen. So just thought I'd get that out there so you understand. Will we quit playing the game in time? I think we should just relax and have a block party. Just rethink what it is that we're doing here. I don't think the whole scarcity thing is working out for us. I could be wrong, but I don't think their soldiers really like shooting other people. I could be wrong. I mean, I'm sure there's gung ho people out there that think that's a great idea, but I think after a while it gets kind of old. Especially when you have to do it in such remote places and inclement. You had bugs and heat, and of course, it'd be okay, I guess, if you were just driving around shooting people. I guess that would be such a big deal. But the problem is that other people shoot back at you. That could be a little uncomfortable. So, but hey, to each its own. If you think that that's the way you want to spend your life experience, go ahead. I mean, it's your game. And if you want to do that, that's fine. Just make sure that you don't infringe on my game here, and keep your bullets in somebody else's direction. Otherwise it'll be all uncomfortable for you, and I'd spare you that. Yeah, you probably won't listen, but I'll say it anyway. Alrighty, folks. I'm Roage, still in the woodshed, playing my own game. You have a good day.